What's up, traders? Welcome to the show. Welcome to Inside Traders. My name is Caleb, and on this show, we talk about the order flow and we make stuff rhyme. So it's kind of fun. So stick around. I'm going to show you something really cool that I just got ready. And I just realized I have no way to show it quickly. Maybe there it is, which is my initial version of Delta Hedging, which I'm very excited to present for your consideration, this automatic hedging program. And I'm going to tell you how that works and the order flow. What's so sad and disappointing about today is, let me bring you down, I had all of this ready to go. I finished it last night, and then I got locked out of my account this morning. It would have been the perfect day to test it on, But I did get to test it later in the afternoon, but the damage was already done by then, so I couldn't really see how well it works. Like, this was the day I was waiting for, and I didn't get to use it. But if I'm right about what's happening, then tomorrow will be another good day to test it. I think markets are bullish. They are bullish, but let's get into the show. So yeah, markets are bullish, but this is fear ahead of the Fed. I think maybe there's some numbers. Somebody put some numbers out there. You know, it's all just algorithmic trading. You can see it happening. You can just watch it. Like, and this is why you have to be agnostic on price. Like, as on all these different key levels, as the price would approach the key level, you would see sell volume just like increasing a ton. And I think that's because what happens is you don't have to actually own the full block of equity to be a option seller. You can sell options in different ways, but the most dangerous way, or the way that the wealthiest people do it, which I think is kind of funny, because it means that we give the wealthiest among us the most concentration of power, doubly so, right? Like, the only people that would be able to take advantage of this exploit in the market are the people that are they're the richest people or whatever. It's not even about money. It's like it's not a tool that's available to the general public. It's available to insiders, which is like the last person you'd want to be doing that stuff. But anyway, point is, markets are manipulated and it's all hilarious. But yeah, you could just see the sellers come in at like these key technical levels. But then the other side of the game is sometimes you see buyers come in. And I've talked about this before, but there's always a reason to sell. Just break the technical level. If you're close to it or in a downtrend, there has to be a reason to buy. And that can be data or news or whatever. It can be anything. But like, I think by default, the market is always selling. And that is kind of cool, because that means like any progress it makes is despite all that or whatever. So yeah, like, it's still pretty bullish. I mean, even on like Tesla, Nvidia, crazy bullish. Tesla, Nvidia. The perfect time to have my Delta hedge would have been right. Where was it? There was like a wave of puts where it was like a ton in a row. Well, there wasn't that many actually. That's funny. Yeah, I thought I saw more. Maybe it was Nvidia. That's kind of a lot of selling. Let's see, Nvidia or Apple. Somebody had like a wall of puts. So anyway, as you can see, it's still pretty bullish. I don't know. We'll see what happens to markets. I mean, if it is actually bullish, then the price will continue to rise in the longest of terms. And either way, one of the things I talk about is just finding ways to take advantage on both sides of the trade, because increasingly I'm starting to see the higher you go in price, the more there is an opportunity. And so that gets pretty exciting um, in terms of being a seller, because you can actually really capitalize on a price decline, which is almost inevitable. Like you can almost count on it uh, until you can't. Tell that to like the people that got burned shorting Tesla or Nvidia. So like nothing is certain or easy in markets, but I think it'd be pretty good to be able to just find a clear trend and then really lean in. Right now, we're pretty choppy. Um, but what I want to do is find a way to lean in a way that is like mitigating my risk, uh, which is very important. I've talked a ton about how I do that, which is basically by selling calls. But if you get locked out of your account, you can't sell calls, and then all of your like naked equity just gets fucked. But you know, like it's not that big of a deal. It's there's always another like evolution or whatever to these tools and these processes, and it's annoying when you know everything to do and you can capitalize, but like the UI won't load or like the order doesn't go through. And I pity the freaking manual trader. I mean, even with this algorithmic stuff, it is hard to get execution. Where's my, I think I have to click it. So yeah, like there is such a long way to go on this, such a long way. But this initial version worked shockingly well. Um, and I think it's because the idea is so simple. Like bugs aside, that there's definitely still a bunch of bugs, which is like kind of scary. But you know, you're only selling for credit. The worst thing you can do is like get a bunch of money in your account. And so you can sell a bunch of calls at the bottom and they get nuked. But the only reason I'm ever activating Delta Hedge is because I think this is a good time to harvest. And so the idea is, which I would have done, sorry, you have to like put up with it, is, you know, how like the guy gets kicked, he kicks the dog eats a flea. What? Something. There is a chain. But speaking of chains, so I am monitoring each chain individually now for all of these different positions I have, and then taking an aggregate of the delta, which you can see here. This is real data. This is like a bit obfuscated, but directionally correct. And yeah, like that was, what's 13? Who's that? Unity. There's no way. I have a bunch of sold calls. I'll be curious what that is. Call gap. Oh, it's because of my sold calls. Yeah. So how it works is you actually want, when you create your index, you want to less your sold calls delta, which means you're minusing a negative number, else otherwise saying you're adding two numbers together. And there is a way in arithmetic that makes really sense of how that works. But I can't think of it right now. So anyway, you can see like we're basically, the idea is to take an index. And what's funny is this stuff changes after hours, I think, as the price changes. So that's kind of surprising. Of course, the market is closed, so you would just queue an order, but it would queue an order if it like this is running this live. So we'd literally see it queue an order if the price drops. And so, yeah, what it's doing is it's taking all of the puts and calls that were debits on that chain, and then it's summing their deltas. And yes, Yes, it's summing their deltas, and then it's taking that uh, it's separating it by longs and shorts. So long delta is a debit. That would be you're buying a call or buying a put. And then a sell side would be a credit. And so you're selling a call or you're selling a put. And so that sets your index. Then, and this is kind of like the most important part, I think, for performance, given my current system, and I have so far to go. It's crazy. Um, but I then have a predetermined contract that's going to be like my sell contract, because then in theory all I do is like look at that all day long and figure out when to buy it back, you know. um, or not at all, just like if it's completely not bullish sentiment, then, or if it's bearish sentiment, then hold on to that sold call. But either way, that's how it works. Is so yeah, you take an index right at the very beginning, like when you start monitoring, you just look at every position you have, and then you segment it by symbol and by chain, and then you aggregate all the calls and puts together for both long and short. That gives you a 4x4. You use that to set the index, compare everything to that index. When the gap, don't think I told you this, when the gap of the current delta, as it's changing all the time, and it'll go, if it's bullish, it's amazing how much the delta changes. I'm shocked by that. I'm absolutely shocked by that. It makes me wonder what delta values I've had before. But yeah, the delta value moves for sure, in part because it's aggregating the entire chain. So there's a ton of contracts, different contracts in that number or whatever. On the sell side, though, it's basically all concentrated on one contract. And then as soon as it makes sense, boom, 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 we try to buy that back. And I got a little bit of it today. But yeah, like I what's going to be cool about this is I will turn off delta hedging. It doesn't do anything if the market goes up. So it only protects you. It cannot cap your gains. It can't cap your gains. No, okay, fine, it can. Yeah, it can. Here's how it can cap your gains. There can be a flash crash that activates the system big time. It sells a ton of calls, and it would immediately. I've seen it do it. Like, I mean, the math is just, it's literally, I can't think of a better way to code it, actually. There's no math involved. I'm just taking a contract, and then however many, like, that's why the contract I pick is so important. And not just the delta value, but that's the right contract to sell. In this case, we think it's a contract that's going to be expiring out of the money, but still has enough, but there's a risk that it will expire above the money, or in the money rather, if the price keeps going up. But like, given the delta profile, that's what we want anyway. So the risk is kind of like asymmetric in our favor by selling calls. And that's why I'm so interested in selling calls. But then when things get very toppy or whatever, or you're like at a clear technical level, you add some puts. And what's crazy is the system works for puts. And so if you just keep going up, it's going to sell those puts. And then if you reset it, and yeah, so it protects on both sides. It's crazy. One thing I have to figure out is, when I want to buy back calls, I have to first reset. I have to stop the system, because as the second I buy those back, it'll immediately sell them again, because it's looking at the index of the original position. So like, I need a handy way to just be like new index after or like pause, maybe new index, resume, something like that. But that's a bug, or I mean, a feature. And yeah, there's a lot more I can do. but it's pretty good for what it is. And I can subscribe to any symbol on any period on any chain and take a position. And then the second I take that position, I can immediately hedge it in this way. And if that delta were to drop, then yeah, like it's not foolproof for sure. Like I said, if there's a flash crash, it's going to sell a ton of calls. Like it could sell out all of your equity. I mean, it will sell the delta gap. And so the delta gap is the idea of the system is you cannot lose delta when it's active. And it will sell as many units as it has to make up for that gap on the from the hedge contract. And so the hedge contract has like a delta value. Let's say it's like 0.09 or like 0.2 or something. And if the delta gap is like 1.8, it's going to try to sell 6 contracts. And or whatever it is, 1.89, 9 contracts if they're well, anyway, you know what I mean. It's gonna fill the delta gap. It's gonna fill the delta gap, and so yeah, it could sell your entire position easily. But wouldn't you want it to? Not in a flash crash. So and there's no real way to like stop it from doing that because it is just reading the delta live. I think I can calculate my own delta eventually, but right now I am doing API calls. It's pretty fast. So yeah, that is delta hedging. Any questions? Oh, nobody. What? So yeah. What else happened in the tape that was notable? I wish I could get some feedback on delta hedging. Like, I think the idea is pretty freaking good. Highest premium into Tesla. I want to see what people were doing. 1.6. Damn, 250 strike. That's a good call. Boom. I like that call. I like that call a lot. So that's a call that I could make now. In theory, if my system really does work, I'll find out tomorrow. I'll learn more tomorrow. But it'll be nice because I'll be able to approach it. Hopefully I don't get like locked out again. Oh my God. I'll be able to approach it. Oh my God, I created an order. Let's go look. What did it do? So hedge created on ARC, sell to open, 25 cents. Interesting. So now I should have an email. Whoa, that's been happening for a minute. So the delta must have dropped. Oh, we can see it did drop. So it dropped by how many? Just one unit? Yeah, it's just one. But it was enough to trigger the system. And so then that would have added, because we're minusing a negative number, to the actual chain delta in a way that makes it so that if that was just like barely touching and then it goes off, like that's your maximum loss, is just like that little delta. So I think that's pretty freaking cool. I should cancel. Well, yeah, I'll cancel that. Damn, that's cool. So I'll do that a little bit later. Well, we're not live on the internet. So yeah, that's the system. I get a little email notification. It's kind of fun. And just showing my email. but it's working, and the price must be changing after hours. In fact, that would be interesting. Let's see what the price is doing on trading. After hours might not be coming through. Let's see. 4203. I feel like the after hours is like not that good. What do we think is going to happen with the Instacart IPO? What do we think is going to happen? That should be interesting, right? ARM saw a pretty good pop. I don't know. Instacart has great revenue. Like they're making, I believe, over $1 billion. $2.5 billion. So there you go. That's like the low end to me of what they're worth. I mean, that's like the cash they made. Like they're cash flow positive. They're in a space which is like going to see consolidation, I'm sure, but is also very competitive. The on-demand delivery space. You got DoorDash, which I also like, and I'm a customer of on occasion. You know, I don't know, like it's a little bit like buying the cigarette company, but people smoke cigarettes. So yeah, what were we looking for? Oh yeah, a price difference that triggered the that sell. And so as long as the delta stays below, it should keep trying to sell so that it's not, oh, it's not live. Yeah, so it should be trying to sell unless like the price went up. And it did go up. I can see after hours there was so it's going to sell. ARK is at 42.10 and it sells at 42.02. That's funny. That's so funny. It's funny that the option contract is live, meaning that these deltas change even after hours. And so it kind of makes me feel like I should have it running before market even opens. You know, like, right? Yeah, totally. And then it will just read second by second. And I'll test that a few times and just see if it like sells at the bottom, or maybe it like catches some stuff. I don't know. It's a new system. I've never heard of anyone doing this. This is totally just an idea I had from talking to AI. And the idea is I want to be able to play with naked calls. And I want to be able to play with them and 0-day expiring options, which is like the riskiest thing you can do. And so I have been brainstorming, how do I be able to participate in a safe and reliable way? And this is the best I've come up with, which is like already not that great. It has so far to go, but as you can see, but it is doing a lot of manual work. Like to pay people to do this, I'm pretty sure people Delta Hedge manually, which is crazy. But like, I think people do like look at the Delta and then they make trade decisions. What the fuck? Like, what how could you ever even put your brain in that space? Anyway, this thing is doing a lot of work to create these tables. Might not look like much. There's a lot of a lot of electrons are moving throughout space and time to make those tables. And so, but I think the idea of it is sound. You can see Tesla has had a drop in Delta. Not enough to trigger a sold call yet. And did I see a long put Delta? Where do we have a long put Delta? That I sold those today. Anyway, yeah. But yeah, this system will also protect put Delta, which is awesome. So basically, it lets you take a way less risk and just focus on timing and focus on technicals and not be like obsessively monitoring your position, the worst thing that can happen is you get a bunch of money. That's the worst thing that can happen with this active. Now, really, that might suck, right? Because you might exit right at the wrong time because we were just testing that price, but we tested it with a steep candle and that triggered a sell, and that was 40% of your equity. And it was just like, boom, well, that would never happen. But like that, you could lose maybe 20%, probably pretty easy. In how long? No, you could lose 40%. In 7 seconds, yeah, you could lose 40% in a flash crash. So that's the risk, is a flash crash. And I could write some rules to figure out like and try to detect velocity and things. But for now, I kind of want it to be real rigid and just simple. Like, here is the index delta. It shall not drop, And then you just have that peace of mind. And it's so funny that I worked for months to build this thing, at least like gelling on it. And anyway, today would have been the perfect day to use it on. And for a technical reason, I couldn't. But tomorrow might also be the perfect day. I think every day is going to be the perfect day. If what it does what I think it does, which is builds me a synthetic put. I said on this show, I need a put that puts itself. That's what this is. It just happens to be putting stuff by sold calls. And that's because I want to buy calls. And so I have a lot of them I can sell without disrupting my cost basis. But not if I don't have access. And so it'll be interesting to report tomorrow how it impacts things. There certainly is like no free lunch or whatever in markets, but there is such a thing as like timing and execution speed. And that really matters in markets. It super matters in markets. The faster you are in reacting to something, the better. In fact, things happen in the span of seconds. Like a minute is a very long time. So if I had my way, I would, for every contract of every option on the market, and of course all their stocks as well, have a live socket connection that is giving me 5 numbers. The true mid between the bid ask live by the socket connection, which I suppose could only be determined by actually looking at the trades, but then you would want to estimate it with other market conditions somehow if there wasn't trade action. So anyway, but like this is just like who knows how I could make this real, but this is what I would want, is a socket that's just like streaming like 30 millisecond, like 3 millisecond, 1 millisecond. Yeah, 1 millisecond. Okay, millisecond by millisecond, give me the mid price, the bid ask spread, the bid ask price, and then the high fill price. Like you're probably gonna fill at this price, like this sweep price, and all those are important. But I need a ton of stuff because one of the problems is like this will create the sell order didn't go through. Now I could just use a market order, but then I'm way overpaying. Like if I just use a market order, then the market maker is going to hold on to the contract for a fraction of a second and see if he can make like a couple of bucks off it at my expense. I know that's what they're doing. And so I need to somehow like submit the order in a way where they can't try to capitalize on it, which would be like use the mid, like monitor the order. If it doesn't get filled in a certain amount of time, cancel and replace. Which I suppose this system actually does, because it does cancel all orders before it places new ones. So it does clear out the queue, so to speak. But and it would just keep trying like at a different price, and eventually it would get filled. But yeah, like the danger there is it like places a bunch of orders as we go lower and lower and lower in a flash crash, and then we have like the sharpest like move up, which happens all the time, and then those calls just get burned. But we're only activating Delta Hedge at the top, or when things are obviously going down. And so the idea of it is you're turning it on and off like 20 times in a session. And now part of me thinks, why not just have like another version that's more sophisticated and less kind of sharp, running 24/7, now that I know that, you know, the prices change or whatever. I mean, the delta actually does change, and then it can like really react to markets and like create sell orders after hours, and then it would do something more like based off the previous day's close, or maybe like that with a moving average, but it'd be a lot more complicated and difficult to build. And so this version, I think, gets me pretty far, pretty fast, which is simple enough. Look at all your contracts, sum them up per symbol per chain, take that number minus your long minus your short, so a higher number, and that's your index. And then pick a hedge contract, which is going to have its own delta, which is why your hedge contract is so important. I do think my hedge contract on ARK is a little bit too like shallow, not shallow, like low. So I think that's why it fired a little aggressively or whatever. You could argue that that is a benefit, because you're going to get a more nimble reaction to the market. And so I'll find out for sure, and I'll be talking about it. That's also for sure. But it's cool to see this in action for me, because I had it in my mind and it's such a simple idea. And then it was pretty simple. It's really not more complicated than everything I've said, which is you get all your positions, look at the delta, create the index. If it drops by more than 1 unit of your hedge, sell by that quantity. I think it's pretty doable. So yeah, that is, I mean, it's not only doable, we've seen it do it. Like it created the email. So hopefully I'll have more to report on that front tomorrow, but it is pretty cool. So yeah, what do I think is going to happen? I don't know. Like it's still pretty bullish. Even like, look, that is what people are doing. They are buying. So that's happening. Like Nvidia, more bearish, not even same. Apple, a little more bearish. And why not start accumulating some long-term put equity for real? The problem is it's so tempting to sell anyway. That is why that is why I have built a system that takes care of all temptation for me. In theory, I can just start placing and increasing the delta on the chain, and this should react live. No, see, that's why I need a way to reset the index. Yeah, I do need that. I can just do that by restarting the script, but you know, I need like a convenient way to adjust as I make changes. So yeah, cool. Okay, well, that's the show. Thanks. Nothing really to show you. I'll let you know how it goes, and it's a pretty simple idea. Anyone could try it. Maybe it's a dumb idea. I'll share it if it is. I don't think it is a dumb idea though, because it worked a few times today, a little too well, where, like I said, I couldn't actually close positions because it would immediately just sell the exact position again because that was the gap. So like as soon as I filled the gap or whatever, that's why we need the reset. So I'll work on that. Cool.